The first task is to create a form that will enter a member of staff. So we've done this before. From the table staff, we go create a form, and Access automatically creates a form for you. And this is showing the first member of staff, Angela Robinson, working on Friday in job role ID 1. And underneath here, we're showing the emergency contacts of Angela Robinson in case something goes wrong. So we don't want all this information. We'll go into design view. The first thing we're not asked for is the table staff contact there, so we can delete that. And we are also asked to make sure that the form is ready for data entry. So we make sure that we have the form visible in the properties sheet here, and we make the property for data entry. So what does that do? Well, if we close the form and save it, we want to save it as form staff, FRM staff, because it's a form, not a table. If it was a table, it'd be table staff, but it's a form, so we save it as form staff. And now when we open the form, it's ready for a new data entry. So if we open the form staff in design view, the job role ID here, we want to be able to select the job role. And there's a handy little facility. If you change the entry type from a text box to a combo box, like that, it's great. Go to the data, and just the same as we did in the tables, we're going to create a lookup, and our lookup is going to be from the tuple job role. It's where we expect to find the job role information. We want the job role ID and the job role. I'm going to put the job role in ascending order there. If we run that, we see that there are 3 job roles: bartender, security, and steward. We want to save that SQL, update the policy. So over here we have select a table, job role, etc. And very much as we did in the tables, we want the column count to be 2, and we can make the column widths 0 and 5 centimeters. 5 centimeters is a good width for these columns. Most things fit into 5 centimeters. And now if we go into the form view, we have a nice little combo box with bartender, security, and steward in the drop down. So this time we want to make the availability into a drop-down list, and just to show there's no difference, we'll change it into a list box. No, we won't. I don't like the size of that. We'll change it in. We'll have it as a combo box. Change to combo box. Have it as a combo box. This time we're not using a table query because the types of availability are not listed in a table, or there isn't a table for the type of availability. We're going to make it a value list, and our values are Friday, colon, Saturday, semicolon, and both at semicolons both times. Okay, it accepts that. If we put commas there, Friday, comma, Saturday, comma, access, we'll change them into semicolons anyway, so not hugely important. Bound column is column 1 and the format is column 1. It's going to be the default width. So again, if we go into the form view, we now have a drop-down list, Friday, Saturday, or both, for the availability, as well as the bartender, security, and steward for the roles. So valid data should be added to the staff table. If we look in the staff table, we have 20 rows. We've got a blank one here, and Mr. Catterall. If we put Hunt Christopher, that's nothing like being, no, I want to be, I'll be available on both days. My staff forename is Christopher. And the job role, bartender, I can always help myself to a bit of whatever. And I can go to a new blank record there. And if we look in the table staff, I've added the data. The problem we have with the form at the moment is that it will add any old data. That is any invalid data. So if I don't have a surname there, my brother comes along to help me out on Friday, and he's also a bartender, a bit of a taper, and pass that on in the table staff. See, we've got a record entered without a surname, so there's no validation and there is no message. So we're going to address the issue of a save message displaying. We're going to put in a button. We want a button, there we go, a button, and this is going to be a record operation. It's going to be add a new record. When we press the button, it will add the new record and move on to the next one. We can use the go to new button, that's fine, and we will call this button add staff member. So it's meaningful, you can understand it in the future if ever you need to come back to it. And that's a finish. Now you will see on your button add staff member on the event tab, there is an embedded macro on the on click function. We're going to edit that macro. So click on the button. This is the macro. It says if there's an error, go to the next line, the macro here, and then go to record new. This saves a new record. We're going to put in a message box, so we'll go message box, and our message box says the new member of staff has been added to the database, and we can give it a title of new member added, and we want this message to run when we've gone to the new record, when it has saved successfully. So we will move this up to there. Click and save that, update the property, go into the form view, and why is it doing that? Go to a new record and we'll add a new member of staff, Ward Wesley. Wesley can work on Saturday, and we'll have him as a steward guiding people around. Click on the button for add record, and we've gone to a new form for new data entry. It says the new member of staff has been added to the database, and we've got a title of new member added. All that is perfectly fine. And if we look in the table staff, we have Wesley Ward added to the database. So we're going to use the macro to ensure that the staff surname is present. We go back into the macro design and we add a new action, which is an if action, and now we can use the function isNull. If isNull staff surname, then we want to have a message box, and the message box can say a record will not save without a staff member surname. Please enter a surname. Title, incomplete record, surname required. And then at this point we want to stop the running of the macro. We don't want to save the record because it's incomplete. So we're going to put in here an action which is going to be, I'm going to put stop macro, which is a bit of an experiment. If we want to be sure and certain we've stopped everything, we can use stop all macros. But we can just say stop macro, which should be good enough to stop the processing. Stop macro stops the currently running macro. This action also turns echo and displays system messages back on. They've been turned off to stop a macro when a certain condition is met. Okay, well, we're stopping it when a certain condition is not met. So we'll move this piece of code. We want this to run before the go to record new, before we go to the new record. So we are opening the macro, saying what happens if there's an error. Now we're running a check to see if there's a surname. We stop the macro before we add the record. We can click on save there. Yes, we want to update the methods, the properties. Go into here, we're on the new form. Let's have a look in the table staff. At the moment, we've got Kian Patel added without a surname as number 25. That's the last one. And so now let's try Marina, and Marina needs the money, so she'll work both days, and her job role should be a good bartender, persuading people to buy their drinks. And if we click on add record, there we go, incomplete record, a record will not save without a staff member surname, please enter a surname. And if we go to the table staff, we see that nothing's been added to the table staff. So we can put in Danilova, and now if we click on the add record, a new member of staff has been added to the database. Look in the table staff, and there Marina Danilova is recorded. What you might have noticed is that after you got the error message, the button here retained the focus. Anastas, Friday as a steward, add that. Record will not save without a member's surname. Please enter a surname. And this button has the focus, which isn't very helpful. You really want to put the cursor back in the staff surname box, and we can do that. So if we go, we'll just add Governicius. I don't think that's right, but anyway. So going into the design view and looking at the macro. So we want to add a function in here. So we want to go to control, staff surname, and move that before we stop the macro. So now if we click in that, save changes and update the property, go to the view, we'll go to a new record here. Somebody else in the Cyrus. So Cyrus, and Cyrus's availability is Saturday. Job role, he'd be a good bartender as well. Now if we click on add the record to save the record, incomplete record, surname required, okay, and the cursor is in the field for entry of the surname. Click on that. Okay. Now I've read ahead in the question paper and I find something that's quite cheeky, really, because test 3 on the interface testing says a record will not save in the staff table without a staff member's forename. You've been asked to make sure that a record will not save without a staff member's surname, and now the testing says it must have the forename. So your challenge, should you care to accept it, is to add code to the macro that will check that the staff member's forename is present. So you should have got that. Go into the macro. Go into the macro, and if we can add something here. Well, we'll add a new action. Say if is null staff forename, then we want a message box again. Message box, a staff member record must have a forename. Please enter a forename. Record incomplete. Forename missing. And we can add a new action. We can go to control, staff forename, and then we want to stop the macro. And since the stop macro works, we'll just stop the macro there. And we'll take this if statement and drag it up to there after the staff surname. There are probably more efficient ways of doing this, but this works. We're checking that there's a staff surname. We're checking that there is a staff forename. And then go to record, etc. So now if there's a surname missing or if there's a forename missing, then we will get the error message. Let's prove that. Yeah, go to a new record. So Mohammed, I can't have him as a bartender against his religion, not going to work on a Friday either. So we will have him as a steward. Okay, and no surname. A record will not save without a staff member's surname. Please enter a surname. So we put in hack and accidentally delete the forename. Save the record. Save the record. A staff member record must have a forename. Please enter a forename. And there you go. It's open for us to enter a forename. Mohammed. And now at the third time of asking, new member of staff has been added to the database, and there he is. Mohammed Hack is in the database. So we have an interface, an input form to add a member of staff that's ready for data entry. It checks whether the surname is present. It should also check whether the forename is present. You should have done that. It's possible to select the staff member's job role and the staff member's availability. Data is appended to the staff table and there's a save message displayed. Suitable error messages appear if the surname isn't present or the forename isn't present. The question is, valid data. Do you have to have a job role or a value for the staff member's availability for the data to be considered valid? It might be that you're allowed to enter a member of staff into the database and edit it later to say what job role they're going to have or what availability they have. Or it might be that the user wants, the owner of the music festival wants to be clear right from the start what role and what availability the members of staff have. So we're going to check whether at the moment a record can be added without staff members' job role and without staff members' availability, and then we can put in some checks to ensure that they are populated. So down in the table staff, here we are on a new record. Larry, it goes straight to availability there. Don't like that. Isaac. And if we try saving that, new member of staff has been added to the database. Okay, you cannot add a check because a related record is available, is required in table tubble job role. Aha. So we've got the message that it's been saved, but the probability is that it hasn't been saved. And that's nothing we've done. Yes, we want to open it as read only. Don't want it as, we want the... So the record hasn't saved, and it hasn't saved because of the referential integrity on the job role. So we may as well put in we could do one of two things. One is that we could have a default value on the job role as security, because they're the lowest paid member of staff, or we could put a check in to the database saying you must select a job role ID. If we save that now, new member of staff has been added to the database and we've actually gone to the new record. So in the design view, if we say format data, default value is 3 for security. Design view, not design view. Oh, that's bartender. We don't want bartender. Design value, default value is 2. Choose bartender. We don't want bartender. Steward. We don't want steward. Design. We do want 3. Go to a new record. Security. Yeah. So the new record, if we save the form there and open it up afresh, we've got a default value of security in there. If the person is not a security person, we select bartender or steward, and we can get rid of it. So that isn't going to work, is it? We need to put in a check. So go to the design view, and once again on this button, events, if is null, availability, we want a message box. Please enter the staff members availability. Availability required. And add new action. Go to control. Availability. And stop macro. Move this. So long as it appears before we go to record, so we can put it there before we go to record, then that will work. And I will stop there, and you can put in a check to see if a job role is selected. An alternative approach to checking that appropriate entries are made is not to wait until we press the button and check whether each of the fields is correct, but to check each field as we go along. So for example, the staff surname field here, we can use the onExit event and build a macro. And here we can say very much what we said on the final button. If is null staff surname, then we want a message box. Please enter a surname for the member of staff. Surname required. And then we can do a go to control, but we can't go back to the staff surname because we're just leaving it, not immediately. If we go to control staff forename and then go to control staff surname, that will work. We don't have to worry about a stop macro command or a stop all macros command, because this is the only macro that's running at the moment. So arguably it's more efficient for that reason. And we'll save that macro, yes, and go to the form view, and if we go in there and we try leaving it, we get the message, please enter a surname for the member of staff. Click OK and it goes back to the field. So that's arguably more efficient. A little macro in the staff surname field, the staff forename field, and the availability field. So a task asks you to create an efficient form, and there are other things that might count as efficiency. For example, if we are on the surname field, okay, we hit return, we go to the availability field. We've skipped over the staff forename field, which is probably annoying because you're thinking we want to add to the staff forename field and we have to go back to the staff forename field. It's an extra click. It's a lot of efficiency. If you had to do this several thousand times in the course of a day, several hundred times in the course of a day, it would add to your workload. So we can fix that. I'm just going to put in Meshach, and Meshach can do both days, and he'll be a steward. I think steward's the highest paid. Add that to the record. The new member of staff has been added to the database, and we will go into the design view, and the attribute that controls the order that you enter the fields is called the tab order. Auto tab, no. So the staff surname here has a tab index of 1. The staff's forename here has a tab index of 3. The availability there has a tab index of 2. The staff ID there has a tab index of 0, and the job role ID has a tab index of 4. So the tab index that we've got is 0, 1, 3, 2, and 4. And we want it to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So quite simple. We change the tab index of that one to 2, and we change the tab index of that one to, well, it's automatically changed it to 3. And now if we go into our form view, we'll go to create a new record. Who have we still? Oh yes, we've got Mr. Lee, and hit enter. It goes straight to the staff forename field. Lee Dillon. Dillon's another hard worker. We'll give him both days and put him on security, so we're all safe. Okay, the new member of staff has been added to the database.
So I've changed a lot of this before I came to record it. If we look here at the title, this said double staff, and now it says add new staff member. I have also changed the weight of the font so that it is bold. We have bold font here for add new staff member, which is a sensible description for the form. Here we have some instructions. This is a label from there. Enter the details of new member of staff. All fields need to be completed: the surname, the forename, the availability, and the job role, which is what we know from the testing that comes up. Unless, of course, they expect the testing to fail. But anyway, these labels, so by default this said staff surname and staff forename. We've taken out the staff because you know you're recruiting a new member of staff. You want to record their surname and their forename. The computery name, the field name is staff surname, and the caption is surname and forename. Availability we didn't have to change. Job role ID, well, what we select from the list, from the drop down, we select the job role, and that means much more to a user than the job role ID. So change the caption here to job role, and I've added asterisks in each field. If you're feeling leisured, you might create new labels with the asterisk in them and have the asterisk as red text. Format, and this is the problem because it takes I don't want the form, I want the properties of that field. It's the fore color here, and we can select red as the color. Make it as small as we like to accommodate the asterisk. Move it what have I done there? Move it over to there, and we can align these to range, align, top. Yeah. So now when we look at the form in form view, we have a red asterisk indicating that it's a required field. That's a fag. It's a lot of faff, so I don't recommend it. But if you want to impress and you have a lot of time to spare, you can do it. Okay, saying still enter a surname when you're trying to leave the surname field. Delete that. The staff ID field here is currently disabled, so in the data enabled no, if it's showing enabled yes, then in the form view it takes the focus even though you can't put anything in there, you can't type it there, it just doesn't let you. So going back into the design view, you could make these fields not visible. Make them not visible, and the form will still work in exactly the same way. You could delete those fields and the field and the label, and it would work in exactly the same way. But the examiners in their specimen paper, their specimen solution, have the have fields as visible but disabled, enabled no. Finally, on this one, I'm going to change the so I'm going to take that embedded out and I'm going to put a caption in here. The setting you entered isn't valid for this property. Let's try taking that one out. Yes, I want to remove the picture from the control, and we'll have the caption say add new member of staff. Add new member of staff. Okay, so we have a button there for adding a new member of staff. And so now we have a lovely form. Now the question is, what happens if I press this one for new blank? We are on a new blank record. If we put in a surname, like that, so we've got that, and we click on new record, it goes to a new record, and unfortunately in our table stuff we've added Whittle without a full name. So before I was interrupted by the phone call, I'd shown that using the navigation buttons on the bottom of the form view, bottom of the form view, so this button here, it was possible to evade the macro attached to this button and consequently get invalid data into the database. So what are we going to do about that? We're going to get rid of these record selector buttons. We don't want them anyway, they're not serving any purpose. So in the design view, on the form properties, there is a button here, navigation buttons, make that no, and now on the form view there are no buttons here to allow you to save a record. Let's put this person in. Okay, new member stuff has been added to the database. There. There's nothing down here that allows me to put anything in. So add new member stuff, must have a forename, please enter forename, Harry. Member stuff, please enter the staff member's availability, and put him down for both days. Now we've added the new member of staff. Now that's interesting, because it doesn't go to the surname field by default. This is the nature of database development and design. You can always find something else that you want to tweak, and so if we go into the design view here on this button, on this button, the event macro, embedded macro. So we go to record, object, new, and we can do the message box, and then can I add so we'll have a go to control, staff, surname, move that go to control staff surname up to, it doesn't really matter whether it's before or after the message box. Close that. Let's hope it doesn't. Oh, that's worrying. It's closed access altogether. You might be aware that I sometimes say that IT lecturers are gifted with special powers because things that happen to students never happen to IT lecturers. Well, that's proof that I'm a liar, because yeah, the recent changes that I had made to the database were not saved when I dropped out, and even when I went in again and tried to put in the code to select the staff surname after saving the record, it dropped out again. So it took 3 attempts to get this in here, and I don't know whether it works yet because I haven't tested it. The idea is that after you create the new record, it will go to the staff surname for entering the surname of the next member of staff. So fingers crossed as we close this. I haven't changed anything, so there really is no reason why anything should fail, and thankfully it hasn't done. Go to the form view, we're in the surname. Danska, Eliana, availability, both days, make her bartender, add staff member, the new member of staff has been added to the database, and look, you now have the cursor in the surname field, so you can add the next member of staff, and he's a hard worker. Let's give him a steward role, and so it goes on. We have a beautifully working form. Oh look, I've got these this bar back. I don't want that. Go into the design view, and on the form we want to get rid of the navigation buttons. No. And yeah, our navigation buttons have gone. So the only way to add something is through there. We can close through there. Or indeed, can I close through there? Yeah, close through there. That is the first form complete, and I'm not going to do any more on it.